Hello and welcome back to the fourth episode of Reassembly. I'm Spirit Balance Holder and I'll be your host for this episode. So, as you've again just seen, I've built the next ship, as we'll be doing every episode with. And this one I named the Commander because it has a factory block, and that means that we'll be making squadrons. Oh yes. I have already tested it out, as you've probably already seen as well. Um, and I must say, it's quite a satisfying ship because it has a very high rate of fire and it has quite a lot of power to it. So it definitely is able to kick some ass. And not only that, it actually has a very cool feature to it because that's the way reassembly works. I'll show you. Um, so let's go into the game. There we go. Now, to explain about factory blocks, it's that little octogram actually, or is it octagon? I don't know. But that little thingy there in the back, that is our factory. And I've already taken the liberty of waiting a while for our solar panels to collect some resources, some R, so we can actually start off building things right away. Now, to show you, if we, for example, copy in the assault and we press the button, you see a little core coming out and a little ship is being formed. How quaint. If we wait a bit, just like our ship, he starts to form and he will start following us around and he will now be helping us out. He is now part of our squadron. We can also recruit other ones, so like this one, we simply press tab for command mode and we click on him and he is now recruited. So that means that we now have two ships. But for the moment we don't need any ships, at least not these two. So we click them again, off they go. We can also control the build order of other structures. This is our build order. If I simply press the tree, and if I press enter command mode again and press 3 while hovering over a station or something that can also produce units, we can see its build order. It will build scouts for us. Now, that's not very useful, I'd say, but it doesn't really matter because it's way in our territory and it's not really required to make all those powerful ships. You might notice here actually that our design, this little guy here right in front of us, we designed him, and well, there are quite a few of them actually, so they were clearly built by some station here, probably this one. So it's nice to see that our builds, our constructions, our ships are actually being used also by the AI. But now we get the funny thing. As you can see here with the factory tutorial, we've already completed most of it. Just to test it out, we spawned a ship. But it also says, as the last step, spawn a ship with its own factory to complete the cycle. Now we could just go and make a little ship that could easily be built and is a simple production factory. But actually, because we have enough R storage, and because our ship only requires 2200 P, which is the cost in resources, we can now actually create a copy of ourselves. So let's put him over here so that the factories can build them. And let's put him over here so we will spawn one. And here we go. And off he goes. Now it's just waiting for a moment. And we will see an exact copy of our ship that helps us out, follows us around. We can't really control them like you would in like an RTS game, but it's nice to have some bodyguards. It's nice to have some backup, especially when they are stationed themselves. And And now we also don't need to drop off resources anymore because we have a factory. Because we now are like a station. We now produce units. And if we let them off the hook by using command mode, we get credits for that. So we can still drop our resources off at the station, even at our at our partner, so to say, at our little buddy over here. But we'll have to press a button for that to manually transfer those credits. But yeah, we now have a little clone of ourselves following us around, and he actually picked up some stuff to make himself stronger, which is also nice. So let's see what havoc we can cause with 2 ships that are actually more powerful than our first. There you go! It really didn't stand a chance. We now have very, very fast dual cannons that will make it very easy to hit our targets, because we can just strafe over them, and since they do quite a decent amount of damage, they will cause quite a chaos. There you go. It's very nice when dealing with smaller ships that are a little harder to hit, when you would otherwise have just one big slow cannon. And you can see here all the units we have in our party, and as you see, our friend over here is actually already pumping out a whole bunch of units. We now have a small fleet already, simply because he collected some resources and we now simply can make them. In fact, let's build another one. We already have enough. There you go. And he will become another factory. And now you see how you can get really infectious. This is the way that, especially at very high power levels, you can start to create real chaos. Because you will come in with a fleet of 50 ships and nothing will stand in your path anymore. Because just to put things into perspective, we now use about 2k, a bit more than 2k of P, and the maximum is 8k. So we're only at 1/4 of our maximum power. This isn't even our final form. So, since those reds are very pesky over here, let's see if we can destroy some of those. We now have a little fleet that follows us around. It's generally best to keep a steady pace around them if you want to keep all your followers in the area, because otherwise they might get lost, because they have to the AI isn't of course ideal for following a player. It will never be as fast as you are, but it can try. So no need to go really slow, but just keep in mind you have to wait up for them a bit if you want to stay at full power. Of course, if you're as strong as we are now, it won't matter too much. But yeah. And another one. That's how quickly it goes with those solar panels. That's why I said that Tinkrell have such strong solar panels. We now have 8 small ones and 1 big one. And you can see our R going up rather quickly. It's just a matter of waiting a bit and we get more ships, we get more fleet. And the same goes for our allied factories, so it really just becomes one big army. Now to tell you a little bit about the design I chose here, it's pretty much the same as the last ship, but there are some features I do want to highlight that actually came out rather nicely, if I say so myself. Because usually I just get in there and I think of the things that I want to improve and I simply start building, and that's why my ships usually aren't that fancy the first time around. When we get all the way to the upgraded levels, when we get to 8k and stuff, we will definitely start to mess around a bit with the design. But for now it's mostly just functional. But some things that I really like about the ship is it has 2 big shields. Those shields are actually much more powerful than the small ones. Oh, this fleet, it's very nice, this fleet. wrecking everything that comes near us. And those big shields, those count for 5 times the strength of a small shield. Now we haven't used only the big ones. We have used 2 at the front that are smaller ones to cover those little tips. And it will also give us some extra defense on the front in general. Ooh. We don't want our allies to suffer. But not only that, we actually also have around our core, around in particular our generators, there we have put on some extra defenses, some extra like a flower pattern you can see around it. That will give us a significant amount of extra defense for surviving, especially when things go badly, when things go haywire. You want those thrusters, you want those the core obviously, and you want the power supply to be as safe as possibly you can. So, as you possibly can. So that will really save our ass the moment that when things get really tough. As you can now actually see, with a fleet we can actually simply go into the spiky plants and we'll be relatively fine. Now I must say it's not that many spiky plants here. Usually things get a lot crazier, but it's still nice to see that this all just isn't an issue for us. We can just, it's past, take care of everything in the area. The red here, oh, don't even worry about them. We also have a little station here, one of those unactivated ones. So I reckon that we should activate it. That'll give us another extra friend around which we can station ourselves. There we go. That'll give us a foothold in this area as well. I haven't designed any stations yet, so I might do that for the next episode. Make a station or 2, because we can now produce them, because we can now simply create ships and thus also stations. But yeah, that would be a nice idea for the next time, because having ships around, you can set them loose and they will generally hover around in roughly the same area, but they will also start to wander a bit. So if you want specific locations to be well defended, stably defended, you would definitely want to consider stations. Not only that, but because you don't need to make thrusters for the stations, that actually saves you on P quite a bit, on the power. And that means that you have more power left for the solar panels and for extra defenses, making it a much more effective platform when it comes to creating armies. But you can't recruit them. You can't have them in your party. They will be dropped off and they will immediately be disbanded, so to say. That's alright. Now you can see a whole fleet just following us around. Spiky plants or no, most of them will survive simply because we started using lasers and that works against the rockets. So now with the fleet we have a whole bunch of lasers, we have shields, we have powerful cannons that quickly destroy the plants. And this is again still only 1/4 of our maximum amount of power we can use. We can go so much more crazy, and I have seen what a maximum power ship can do, and it is madness. It is absolutely madness. The only issue with the really big and powerful ships is that they of course also cost extra resources to make. So if you're thinking about getting a fleet of your most powerful ship together very quickly, That's going to take a little while. We still got, even with all these solar panels, even with all the resources you pick up simply from fighting, there still is going to be quite a bit of waiting involved. Because, just to put things again into perspective, we would have pumped out only one of them just now. Only just now we have collected enough resources to actually pump one out. Of course you can see that, but it's just a little calculation I did in my head. As you may notice as well, because of the cannons, we are actually being pushed backwards. That's another thing about our design. We have a lot of thrusters on the back, we have a few on the front for steering, but if we want to go backwards, that's not gonna work out, mate. That's really slow. But if you start pushing those cannons behind it, that's when you get pushed back a lot. So basically our reverse is now simply the recoil of our guns. It might sound silly, but generally in reassembly it's something that you can well afford to do. Of course, provided that you can keep your energy levels high enough. And that's the last thing probably that I really enjoy about this ship design. I added a lot of generators compared to the needs we have for our cannons, and that means that we can regenerate shields and use our defensive lasers whilst firing without getting a big risk of just ending up without power when things get hairy, because that's something you saw last episode still. The moments that things really got nasty, my power, my energy level would drop significantly. And that's something that probably, not certainly, but probably won't happen now. Simply because we have overcompensated a little. Overcompensating isn't a bad thing in reassembly. Overcompensation can be a great virtue as well. Just to give you an example, I once had a ship that mostly was getting destroyed by rockets. It had no proper laser defenses yet, and I just went nuts and made a ship purely out of those defense lasers, those little defense lasers, and that means that we have no range, but it means that no single rocket, no rocket will ever hit us, except if it's a nuke, maybe, because nukes. But it also meant actually that it was very effective against the spiky plants, because they so heavily rely on rockets. And most ships, if I just stayed in the area for long enough, they would just get chewed up. They just get molten down slowly by the lasers, and eventually it'd just reach their core. And you know what happens then. So that really wasn't good. Those research vessels. Only just like 2 episodes ago, those research vessels were about the hardest thing that we could destroy in a one-on-one battle. And now we have an entire fleet and a ship that can take on whole armies of those things. That's wonderful. That's the joy of reassembly, just making ship designs and seeing what they can do and seeing what kind of crazy things you can cause with them. So yeah, we're almost at the end of the episode again, but last time, or actually 2 episodes ago, was it last time? I'm not sure anymore. I wanted to show you guys an agent, and we now have a fleet, so I reckon this should not be a problem at all. So let's head over to this agent, and you'll see they spawn in, bit not all that clean, but you can see now these ships are all the same color. They are quite noticeable. They are very unique. They were made by Hagoroth. Do I say that correctly? Hagoroth, yeah. Oh, and the agent actually already exploded. Basically, the agent is just one of these ships always, and they are marked because those are that specific ship is then the commander ship. And if you destroy that one, you get a nice payment in credits. Oh yes, you get 1,000 credits for it. So that's very, very nice. But because obviously this is a fleet that is created by another player, you can generally expect it to be quite powerful, because we are quite powerful. So just imagine to see this fleet we now have lying around somewhere in your galaxy, causing havoc to whatever comes across of them, and then you have to picture a bit of what agent actually would mean. That's why you have to be very careful when approaching them. But this one clearly was a lot lower level. They definitely were still a lot earlier in the game when they uploaded their design. And you might ask, well, how do you upload a design? Well, there are these little wormholes on the map. I'll show you. You can see in the blackness, there's little squiggly lines. There's spirals. Those represent wormholes. And wormholes allow you to either move yourself to another universe, or upload your design, which allows your designs, your fleet, the ones you have designed in this menu, to appear somewhere else in someone else's game. So you can actually, if you make your designs right, you can actually cause quite a bit of havoc, but regrettably you'll never get to see that. But it does mean that if you made a design that you tested out with the AI, because you can test that, you can test out your designs, how the AI handles them. If your AI handles them really, really well, if it becomes truly a wrecking machine in the hands of the AI, not just in your hands, but in the AI's hands, there's a big difference. then that means that you can have a lot of fun, or people will have a lot of fun with your design. So, considering that the time is already up, I think I'll give you just one more thing, and that is to showcase that that testing method I mentioned, because always nice that when someone talks about something, they actually show off what it actually means. So, over here we have our ship. We can export and import as a design, as a file itself. We can also edit the controls. And we can edit the bindings of our ship. So basically, my two cannons now are bound to left mouse button, and our defense lasers are point defenses, which means they will auto fire. We can also take control of them if we would like that, but auto fire is generally very, very effective. But this little test button, this will mean that this design is going to be tested against a similar, or something the computer thinks is similar to your design. It will test them against that design, and you will be able to witness the fight. So let's do that. And he found two similar designs. So let's see what happens. I do think that this opposing ship is a bit more powerful. Oh yes, those cannons had a lot more power to them. And now we have the upper hand, because front-mounted cannons obviously means that they have to be aimed the right way. And we have a very different style of weapons. So we are a little bit more flexible. But if he gets the jump on us, we do suffer from it. So, will we win round 3? This is what it all comes down to. Will we win this round? Oh, yep, we do. So, now we'll see against that other design you see over there. And from the looks of the cannons, those work very similar to our last opponent. So, the results will be similar as well, I reckon. And the second round. And you see his mistakes. You see the mistake that the AI makes right from the beginning, and that is to turn the ship away from our ship. And normally that would be a good idea to avoid for evasive maneuvers, but because we are the Tinkrell, because we rely on those front-mounted cannons, that design in the hands of the AI is simply falling short. In the hands of a player, that would cause chaos, but in the hands of the AI, it simply falls short. And that's why Tinkrell ships are not always the best pick for if you're out to cause chaos with a fleet, because your friends, your AI-driven companions, simply aren't nearly as powerful as you are. You know how to control the ship. You know how to use it most effectively. The AI does not. The AI only guesses, and generally it guesses pretty well, but when it comes to front-mounted designs and specific ways you have to orientate the ship to use it most effectively, that's when the AI falls short. That's simply regrettably something that the AI could use some improvements in. But at the same time, I don't find it to be very detracting from the experience, because again, it's only AI driven. And in the end, it's mostly about how you experience the game after all. So, but it is fun to see them having a little row out there and see what your ship can do in the hands of the AI. So, well, that has been everything for this episode. I've been Spirit Balancer. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you all have a nice day today. Bye.